What's going on, everybody? Happy weekend. We made it. It is Friday evening. We're running a cover 3 here on Giants Collective. Just a quick shout out to our production team. I got to say, I know Chris likes it too. That intro music does get me fired up, man.
Oh, I love the intro music. I'm sure you see me because you set it up. I'm dancing in the background every time I hear the intro music. I love it.
It is good. So we're here on a Friday night. Obviously, this is a lot of Q&A. We answer your questions on the Friday night edition. Unless something really breaks. Nothing has broken. But before we do get into the questions, it did come out today that the Steelers supposedly have offered Aaron Rodgers some kind of contract. Now, I don't know how legitimate that is, and that Aaron Rodgers is mulling it over. However, Russell Wilson did come out and say that the Giants seem to be the more viable option between the two teams. And Anthony, we'll start with you. So no Ojulari, by the way. She's in Vegas. Lucky her. But Anthony, I mean, I think this is the best opportunity or the best situation for the Giants. I think Russell Wilson is a better fit myself for the Giants. I think Aaron Rodgers brings a lot of drama. As you can see, he's not even a Giant, and he's brought a lot of drama to the Giants. Russell Wilson seems more like the quiet, just lead by example type of guy. You think Russell Wilson's going to be our quarterback?
Yeah, I do think Russell Wilson is going to be our quarterback, and I agree with you. Like, I'm already tired of talking about Aaron Rodgers and the Giants, and he's not even on the Giants, right? Like, we've just been waiting for him to make his decision, and I'm tired about it. So I think the reporting today was that he had a visit with the Steelers, and I think it lasted about 6 hours, but he left without a contract. They have an offer in place, the Steelers do, as do the Giants, is what I've seen from reporting. But he went to the Steelers today not to talk about money, but to talk about fit. So ultimately, he walked out of there without signing a contract, which for the Giants is a good sign. Now we'll see if he ends up having a meeting and a visit with the Giants as well. So far, he hasn't had a visit with the Giants. This is his first meeting is the one with the Steelers. So we'll see how that goes if the Giants end up having one. But Russell Wilson makes the most sense to me. He's 5 years younger than Aaron Rodgers, which is a big deal to me. Plus, I think that his ability to command an offense, be a good leader in the locker room, and also not cause a media firestorm is really important. So I like Russell Wilson, what he could bring to the table. And I think his reported asking price is significantly lower than Aaron Rodgers. So I think that also factors in. If the Giants are trying to win this season, you could technically sign Russell Wilson plus add a couple more talents to the roster in the process versus with Aaron Rodgers, the reported asking price of $35 to $40 million or whatever it was. Well, you're kind of limited in what you can do there if you do end up signing Rodgers.
Yeah, and you mentioned last time, and I think Chris also touched on this last time as well. If for whatever reason we punt on the quarterback position at 3, or the quarterback we take at 3 doesn't work out, you still have Russell Wilson. Like, Russell Wilson should not be just a 1 year. He's not 41. Like you mentioned, he's going to be 36 or 37 in the middle of the season next year. So he still would have a few good years left. It's not like he's not in his prime. He's just now coming out of his prime, where Aaron Rodgers, even though he had a decent year with the Jets, is out of his prime. I'd much rather have a guy at 36, knowing that if you have to hold on to him for a couple more years, you could, and he could still be your bridge quarterback while you compete, as opposed to Aaron Rodgers, who might be just 1 year and then out, and then you're stuck in, quarterback purgatory again. Chris, do you think Russell Wilson's going to be Giants QB?
Yeah, I do. I mean, nothing's set in stone, but the only thing, as we talked about before the show started, as I've said, over the last couple of weeks when we've talked about this topic, because that's all we've had to talk about, because we still don't have a quarterback. My thought process with the quarterback position for the Giants and Russell Wilson was the only way, realistically speaking, that he probably wasn't going to end up with the Giants as things started to unfold, was if Aaron Rodgers himself didn't sign on with the Steelers. If he doesn't go to the Steelers, then I could definitely see Russell Wilson finding that to be the more appealing situation. I would actually be surprised if he didn't go back to the Steelers if they wanted him back in that scenario. But all signs to me, especially with the Vikings now out of it, well, we'll see if they're out of it. I know there's been some mixed reporting that the Vikings may still be potentially interested down the line. We'll see. But if the Vikings are out of it, I think Aaron Rodgers to the Steelers is almost a lock unless he's retiring. And from what I've read, that's not going to be an option. So if he goes to the Steelers, I think Russell Wilson makes all the sense in the world for the Giants, and I think it makes sense for us too. He gets an opportunity to play with Brian Dable. He's got a good weapon in Neighbors. Even if he's not long for the job here after this year, if they draft the Shedeur Sanders, and they want to replace Russ after this year. If he plays relatively well, he gets an opportunity somewhere else the following year. So I think it makes sense for all parties. I think he's a perfect stopgap option to mentor the young quarterback if that's the route that the Giants are going to go.
Yeah, I've always been a Russell Wilson fan. I remember before they drafted Daniel Jones in 2019, there was rumors of him coming to the Giants, and that would have been great because he was in his prime at that point. But I've always liked Russ, and I would always say, well, at least Russ is a Yankee. Russell Wilson is a Yankee. He's taking some spring training swings. So he's kind of a New York guy anyway. But I agree with you guys. I think Russell Wilson fits better. I think he brings less drama. And to Anthony's point, he will cost a lot less money. This just seems to be the perfect fit. I don't think there's any production fall off because Anthony mentioned the numbers on Wednesday, and they were very similar. If you project them over a 17-game season or however many games they played, Russell Wilson's numbers are exactly the same, and Aaron Rodgers had much better weapons to throw to with the Jets. So obviously the Jets brought him in to try to win, and he didn't win there. And the Steelers don't really have a great group of guys, but Russell Wilson could win there. So I'm leaning more towards Russell Wilson, if nothing else, for the fact he costs less. He's younger. He doesn't bring the drama that Aaron Rodgers does. So I just think that'd be much better. The Giants don't need any more freaking drama, man. We had that Hard Knocks crap last year. We watched our best player go to our most hated rival and win a Super Bowl. I don't think we need any more drama here. I don't think we need it. I think we need to get past it all. I think they need to start over. They need a clean slate. And Russell Wilson, like I said, he's just kind of a quiet guy. You're not going to hear anything really bad about Russ. So I'm definitely on board with that. Speaking of the Eagles, we're going to completely pivot here.
Yeah.
Because I've seen this in the chat, and I saw this on Twitter. And Chris, start with you this time. Azeez Ojulari went to the Eagles, right? Why are Giants fans making such a big freaking deal about this? Azeez Ojulari is a nice player. He's never on the field. He didn't do anything for us. Is it just any Giant that goes to Philadelphia now, we're going to throw a fit about it?
I just think Giants fans, Bad Dog, like to complain, and rightfully so. The team's been a disaster. And whenever a player leaves, especially if he's going to go to the Eagles, they're going to complain. And I saw everybody on Twitter, and I mentioned this right away as soon as I saw the signing because I knew the storyline amongst many on Twitter with the Giants. Why didn't the Giants just give him $4 million? Why didn't the Giants just bring Azeez Ojulari back? And the first thing I said before I even got to see the comments, because I knew that was going to be what the talking point was, he wasn't coming back here for $4 million. Azeez Ojulari wasn't going to go back to the New York Giants for $4 million. He saw what the Eagles did last year, what that defensive line did. He saw their defensive tackle get paid $26 million a year with the New England Patriots and said, hey, let me go compete for a Super Bowl. Let me try to maximize my productivity, and maybe I'll strike it big. And the Giants replaced Azeez Ojulari with a competent player with Golston. My guess is the Giants probably, if I had to guess, I have no idea, probably offered Azeez Ojulari a fairly comparable contract to that of which they paid Golston, because reports came out that the Giants did offer Azeez Ojulari a contract, and he said, no, I'll take a little bit less. I'll gamble on myself. 1 year, $4 million. I'll play with the best defensive line in football. And if I have a good year and I stay healthy, I'm going to make $25 million a year because that's the going rate for a good defensive end in today's NFL when you hit the open market. So, I think it makes all the sense in the world for Azeez, and it didn't make sense for the Giants to bring him back, really. Like you said, he's always hurt. We could look for more of a long-term option in the draft. He was never a Joe Shane guy to begin with. So I think fans just look for things to complain about. It's not apples and apples. He was never coming back here for $4 million a year. It wasn't happening.
Anthony, is it a big deal that Azeez Ojulari went to Philadelphia?
Yeah, it is a big deal.
I'm
really frustrated about it. Yeah, it pisses me off because there's so much context behind this, because on Fireside Giants, Alex and I had legitimate arguments, like yelling at each other about Azeez Ojulari at the trade deadline. I was like adamant, you have to keep the guy. He's talented. He's going to get hurt before the end of the season. So this $10 million price range that people are talking about is not real. He's going to sign for $5 or $6 million is what I said at the deadline. He ended up signing for $4 million. My whole rationale was you hold on to him because he's still young. He's talented. No, he's not on the field for 17 games, but when he's on the field, he's so impactful. His pass rush win rate is the exact same metric of pass rush win rate percentage, the same as Brian Burns since 2021. When he's on the field, he's as impactful as any Giants defender. No, he's not on the field every game. Okay, neither is Andrew Thomas. And we all think Andrew Thomas is maybe the most valuable player on the New York Giants, right? We would all sign up for Andrew Thomas at $26 million per season, which is what he's making, even though we know he's probably not playing all 17 games. But when he's on the field, he's arguably the best player on the field for the New York Giants. I felt similarly, not the best player on the field for the Giants, but similarly to Azeez Ojulari, where, yeah, maybe you get 10 games out of him, but those 10 games that he plays, he has 6 sacks in those 10 games, and those 6 sacks usually come at crucial moments. He is an impactful player, and for those kind of guys, you should be willing to pay the discounted rate for those injured players. Now, the thing is, he did get a contract offer from the Giants, according to Dan Duggan of The Athletic, and maybe it might have been more than the 1-year, $4 million per season. So Chris is right. He wasn't signing here for that price tag with the Giants. That's a contract that he only took because the Eagles are as good as they are. However, I personally would have been willing to pay a little bit more to keep Azeez Ojulari, in-house talent, good locker room guy, plus very impactful when he's on the field. The one season, if it ever happens that he does play all 17 games, who knows what that stat line looks like? It might look really, really impressive. Exactly. We'll see it this season. Now that he's an Eagle, he'll be healthy. He'll play those 17 games. Yep. Here comes the 15-sack Azeez Ojulari season. It's inevitable now. But no, seriously, I was frustrated because Alex and I had this conversation at the deadline where he was like, well, we'll take the 5th round pick or the 6th round pick for Azeez Ojulari. And I was like, man, the 5th round, 6th round pick. 6th round pick is Darius Masua. Darius Masua and what he did this year, the 1 interception that he had against the Vikings in week 1 is not nearly as impactful as the 6 sacks that we got across the season from Azeez Ojulari. So that's how I break it down in my head. I think Ojulari is a very impactful rotational pass rusher. And considering he's the 3rd pass rusher on the roster from the edge, as a rotational guy, very valuable to me. I totally wanted him re-signed. I wanted him kept at the deadline, even though most Giants fans have wanted him traded. I thought that the long-term benefits of keeping him around were greater than the long-term benefits of a potential 5th or 6th round draft pick. So that's where I stood with it. I'm frustrated. It's no surprise that he went to the Eagles. That seems to be the hot spot for Giants players to go now. Whenever they have an injured season, go over to the Eagles. They'll make you healthy and they'll make you have a career year. That seems to be the case for Azeez, and that's really what I'm afraid of because I've always thought he was a really talented player, talented pass rusher when he's healthy. Staying healthy has been an issue, sure, but I also think there is value in players who, yes, are mostly injured, but when they're on the field, play some really good ball, and that really good ball makes a big difference down the stretch of the season.
Plus, they have all his former Georgia teammates there, right? Like they're loaded with.
Yeah, Jalen Carter is Georgia, yeah.
So I'm sure that played at least a minor factor for him to go there as well.
Yeah, he definitely played at Georgia. I was going to say that. I'm like, Philadelphia loves nothing wrong with Georgia defenders. And I agree, Anthony. I mean, he was definitely very impactful when he played. The problem was he didn't play. I don't know what the Giants offered him. It obviously wasn't a huge deal, but we'll never know. I don't think they ever come out. I wonder if anybody else offered him a contract as well. There's really nothing you can do about it. If players don't want to sign on here, they don't want to sign on here. And that was the thing with Barkley. And I'll go to my grave saying that. People like the Giants didn't try to sign him. Like, it's bullshit. They totally tried to sign him. He didn't sign. They tried to sign him in 2022 during the bye. They wanted to get that contract done before the offseason because they wanted to tag Daniel Jones. And when he wouldn't sign the contract, the Giants couldn't go any higher with the money. They got put in a really bad spot, and they ended up being in an even worse spot. And then Barkley ended up walking. And, same thing here. I don't know what they offered Azeez Ojulari, but they could have offered him $8 million, and he could have said no. Because to Chris's point, I'm going to go to Philadelphia where I don't have to be the man. All these other people around me are going to make me better because their defense is phenomenal. And to your point, Anthony, yes, whenever he was on the field, he might get, 15 sacks if he played 17 games, and then you're going to get paid $25 million. It's a business. It's a business. And the Giants right now are bad for business if you're trying to get a contract. So you can't blame these guys for doing it. I get it. I totally understand it. So, yes, expect Azeez Ojulari to play 17 games this year.
20 games. They're going to win another Super Bowl.
They're probably going to make it happen. So, it's crazy to think that. But, I just want to touch on it.
He made the right decision, man. I agree with you. I think he would have probably turned down $8 million a year for the Giants for the opportunity to sign the 1-year deal for $4 million because he looks at Milton Williams. He says, this guy just got almost $30 million a year.
Right.
If I can stay healthy next year, I know I'm getting double-digit sacks on this defense. I'm going to get paid a boatload. I'm not going to get that same opportunity with the Giants. So I don't think he was ever coming back here. I agree with Anthony that I would have liked him back. I see the potential, but the Giants can't compete with that scenario unless the Giants were willing to pay him well above market rate, which they weren't going to do because they probably, at least as of now, plan to invest in Kayvon, and they've already invested in Burns. Of course, they brought in Golston as well from the Cowboys, and they may even draft a defensive lineman early in this year's draft. So,
they invest in Will Carter. You never know. Never know. Let's get to some of these questions. I appreciate you guys sending in the questions. We'll start with B-Rog, who had a super chat right at the end of the. Oops, let me get rid of this. Hold on 1 second. Had the question right at the end of the stream last week. That's not the right one. That's not the right one. I lost it.
A
second. Damn it.
I could probably pull up the stream last week because you pulled it up at the end, and I could tell you what the question was.
That's not the right one.
I'll get it.
That's not the right one. And that thing's gone from last time. Son of a bitch. That's not the right one. I clicked the wrong one.
I'll get it. I want to make sure we read this question. Hopefully he's back in the chat. I know that we said that we told us he was coming back. Hopefully he's here. Yeah. All right, here we go. I got it. It was at the very end of the stream, right?
Yes. Right at the very end.
There it is. Okay. My phone's so small. All right, here's the question. No, that's David Stewart. Never mind.
I got it here.
Okay.
The question from B-Rog was, you never know what can happen. If you get Carter at 3, the defense kicks ass, and we win with a bridge quarterback. Does Joe Schoen get fired by winning 7 games?
Anthony, you can start with that one.
I think 7 games is enough potentially to keep him his job, depending on how they look in those 7 games. I think what's crucial is those 7 games, those potential 7 wins, you got to keep in mind what the schedule is going to look like. Like, we play in arguably the toughest division in the NFC East with the Super Bowl champion Eagles and a really good team, NFC Conference Championship contenders and the Commanders. Plus, we play the NFC North, if I'm not mistaken. So that was a great division last year. Mm-hmm. It's just a tough schedule. So if the Giants do squeak out 7 wins with this roster, Joe Schoen might end up keeping his job potentially, especially if the defense does kick ass and we only have a bridge quarterback and not a rookie quarterback. So I think it's possible for Joe Schoen to keep his job with 7 wins, although I think if he gets 9 wins, it's a lock he keeps his job because they're probably competing for a playoff spot. But 7 wins, like I said last week, depends how you define competitive. But if competitive to you is where the Falcons were last year, where they could have made the playoffs, could have not made the playoffs, that was competitive in my mind. That 7 wins is what they ended up with. So, yeah, to me, competitive might keep the Giants regime their job. So I think 7 wins could potentially keep Joe Schoen his job.
I'm going to go. I'll take it a step further. If they win 7 games, it's a lock. Joe Schoen keeps his job, in my opinion. Joe Schoen and probably Brian Daboll, based off the assumption we take a rookie quarterback early in this year's draft. Now, if they don't draft a quarterback at all and they win 7 games, then it's not a lock. But if they draft a quarterback early and they win 7 games with this schedule, like Anthony alluded to, they're coming back. They're getting another year with that rookie quarterback. I'd be stunned.
Uh-oh. He got so stunned he froze in time.
That was impeccable timing. I'm stunned. That's perfect timing.
I'm stunned and he is stunned. Well, until
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back. You're kind of frozen, but you're back.
Okay.
I'm voice frozen. Is back, okay. But the video.
Okay. My voice is back. My camera's frozen?
Yes.
Okay. Well, you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
The hell's going on here?
I don't know. You're moving a little bit now. Now he's out again. Break it up.
Let me stop my cam and come back.
Friday night streams, I guess,
Yeah, the gremlins are out. All right, we can
hear me, right?
Yeah. Yes. There we go.
You're back now. You're back. There we go.
And he's back.
All right. I don't know if you heard what I said, but I basically said 7 wins. They're both coming back under the assumption they draft a quarterback early. They're both coming back.
You said you were stunned, and you stopped. He said, "I'll be stunned."
Oh, I'd be stunned if they draft a rookie quarterback and they're not back with 7 wins against their schedule. I'd be stunned. Absolutely stunned. I even think 6 wins with this schedule. If they draft a quarterback early, they're probably coming back.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with both of you. I think if they show improvement and they win 7 games against the schedule, I think it's obviously a major improvement over last year. Schedule's very tough, but I think you also, in your losses, you have to look competitive. Like, you can't lose to the Eagles, 37-7. You can't get beat by the Cowboys 30-3. Like, you can't let these teams in your division continue to steamroll you. And maybe you find a way to steal a game against Dallas or Washington or Philadelphia, although Philadelphia probably not because they're just so much better than us. But you never know. Week to week, anything can freaking happen in the NFL. So you never know. But if the Giants find a way to win 7 games, and they are competitive, kind of like Carolina was at the end of the year, where they lost to Kansas City in overtime. They played Philadelphia right down to the wire. The best teams in the league, they lost, but they were ultra competitive and played right to their level. I think if the Giants can do that against a tougher schedule and beat some of the teams that they're even with on paper, or, a little bit better than on paper, I definitely think 7 wins gets these guys back next year. So, I mean, I hate going into a year going, God, I hope we win 7 games, but it would be such a major improvement and it would show signs of life. And then you'd say, well, look, he could go in and argue and say, look what I did with the roster. Look what I did in free agency. Look what we did in the draft. Look at how well we played during this stretch of football. Just give me another year and we're going to get to the playoffs next year. Like, we have everything set in motion now. We got the rookie quarterback. We're ready to take off. So we'll see. But I do think also, I think 7 wins would bring them back for sure. This question came from David Lomicki. So this is a question for Friday. What do you think about Milton as the Giants draft pick? I remember Hurts and Lamar Jackson having similar concerns, and now they're 2 of the best in the NFL. Milroe has a great mental makeup and physical talent that's very similar to those 2. Chris, what do you think? Start with you this time.
I pick 3. Is that the question? If it's pick 3,
I don't think it's at pick 3. I don't think he's. I don't know. Actually, he didn't mention it. I would not be happy.
If your question is, do I think they should take him at pick 3? The answer is 100%.
I'm guessing not, because Lamar Jackson, they traded back up into the first round to get Lamar, and Hurts was a second round quarterback. So my guess is that particular
second or third round. I mean, if they take him, they take him. Day 2, I'm not going to complain if you take a quarterback that at least has some upside and some potential. I don't think they're going to go that route, but I understand why fans find it enticing because he's a great athlete. His throwing, at least when I've watched him, and I probably watched 3 Alabama games last year, left a lot to be desired. I was not impressed when I watched him throw the football last year. And maybe I picked the wrong games to watch. I don't know. But he did not impress me as a thrower of the football. Great runner. And he's a project, but maybe the Giants feel, we could maximize this guy's ability with Brian Dable. If they want to take a swing on him in the 3rd round, yeah, sure. I'd be okay with that, but not even considering pick 3 and not even considering trading back up into the 1st round for him.
Yeah. One thing I'll say though, with Jalen Hurts, obviously he's in a great situation, but the same thing with him. He wasn't a great thrower of the football. He went to a better situation. I'm not trying to knock Jalen Hurts here. I do that enough, and I will continue to knock him because I enjoy it very much. But it's not like he's a terrible quarterback, but he's in a great situation. It just is what it is. I don't think Jalen Hurts would be doing what he's doing if he was the Giants quarterback or the Cardinals quarterback or the Steelers quarterback. Like, you could pick even the mediocre teams, and I don't think he'd be as good as he is with Philadelphia. Lamar Jackson, I don't think that Baltimore's ever really been that talented offensively, and he just has a ton of skill. But
Lamar also bad, Doug, and I know he was on. Let's be real, he was unfairly treated that year. The guy won a Heisman Trophy. We're not talking about a guy who had no credential, like limited credentials at the collegiate level. Milroe left a lot to be desired on an Alabama squad, one of the best overall teams in the country. So I don't think he's near the prospect that Lamar Jackson was. Not to mention Lamar Jackson went later in that draft due in large part to the fact he was unfairly treated. But on top of that, it was like the greatest quarterback draft class like ever, or at least it was said to be going into that class. I'm not saying after the fact, but going in, everyone was raving about Rosen. Everyone was raving about Darnold, Josh Allen, of course, Baker Mayfield. So if it was this class, Lamar Jackson would be probably the top 2 or 3 pick. So that quarterback class had a lot to do with why he fell. I don't even think they're close, even as prospects.
Anthony, I know you do like Milrow. So what would you think about that if they decided to go, say, Travis Hunter third overall, and they decided they want a Milrow with their second pick?
Yeah, listen, I like Milrow to an extent. Definitely not at number 3, same as Chris said. And I agree with pretty much everything Chris just said. Like Lamar Jackson as a prospect coming out, I thought was spectacular, and he was unfairly treated. And he doesn't even compare to Jalen Milrow. Jalen Milrow is a project. Jalen Milrow needs his mechanics as a quarterback completely reworked. He needs to learn how to play the quarterback position, because what he did at Alabama, he basically played 7v7 football when they were throwing the ball, because they simplified the passing offense that much. And then the majority of what he did was run the ball. Like all of their offense was quarterback keepers, quarterback options. So he doesn't even know how to play quarterback at the collegiate level necessarily, let alone the NFL level. So he's a complete project, not somebody that I would touch in the first rounds, maybe in the second rounds. But honestly, I think after Jalen Milrow had the issue at the Senior Bowl with his hand size, a lot of NFL teams really care about that. Now, fans might not care about that because they just watch the players play and they make their assumptions and their, analysis based on how they play on the field. But for NFL teams, they have all these different data points and
I missed
statistics.
that. Yeah, you mentioned that last week too. I missed it. What was his hand size?
It was under 9 inches. And so for NFL teams, generally speaking, 9 inches is the bare minimum. And he came in at like 8 3/4. The funny thing is, at the NFL scouting combine, he came in over 9 inches. So somehow in 3 weeks, he stretched his hands out and grew his hands by almost an inch in size, which was the most bizarre thing ever. I don't understand how that happens. But again, there are a lot of NFL teams that do care about that sort of thing. And there's good reason for it, because when you look on the history of the quarterback position, very few and far between have there been any quarterbacks that have actually succeeded with an undersized hand. His hands are smaller than Kenny Pickett's, and that was the big question mark with Kenny Pickett coming out. Could he be drafted in the first round with his hand size? Ultimately, he was drafted in the first round. Ultimately, he wasn't a good quarterback. So it's a big question mark for Jalen Milrow that I think NFL teams are going to care about. But if you're looking at it from a fan's perspective, his ability to run the football, the 4.37-yard 40-yard dash, or second 40-yard dash. Listen, the thing with the 40-yard dash is, and I said this on Wednesday, we already knew he was blazing fast. That doesn't change anything. The fact that he proved he was fast, okay, we already knew you were fast. Now prove you could throw the football. That's the big question mark. And the thing with me for Jalen Milrow is, I feel as though oftentimes he does know where to go with the football. He can read the field better than I think people give him credit for, because I've watched a lot of All 22. We did it on Fireside Giants. Alex and I did. I've seen him throw to the right spot, but inaccurately. His mechanics are an absolute mess. So it depends on your regime. Do you have the 2+ years potentially that it might take to teach him how to properly throw the football with proper mechanics? The New York Giants do not have that time afforded to them. Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll are not sitting here with all the time in the world to take on this project. They need to win games in 2025. And yes, maybe if they end up landing Aaron Rodgers, then they could take a Jalen Milrow and make him a project over the course of a couple of seasons. But even that feels unlikely to me. I think he's way too much of a project for the Giants. As much as I do like him as a prospect for the right situation, that right situation to me doesn't feel like the New York Giants, because they don't have the time to sit and wait and basically start from scratch with a player like Jalen Milrow. And again, the selling point is he's got the traits that you simply can't teach. That speed, that rushing ability, you can't teach that. You can teach mechanics. So that's where a team will buy in with Jalen Milrow. But I don't think a team buys in the first 2 rounds of the draft. And I think if he's there at pick 99 and the Giants haven't drafted a quarterback, okay, then we can talk about with a top 100 pick taking a chance on him. But ultimately, I think he's way too much of a project for Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll to take on with their backs against the wall entering the 2025 season, where they need to win games in order to keep their jobs.
Agreed. There's no way they can get a reclamation project. You just can't do that. You can't say, like you said, your feet are already being held at a fire. You got to win. You can't go in there and go, well, we're going to try to develop this guy. He has a raw talent, but you can't teach 4.37 speed, and you can't grow hand size. But Kyler Murray, somehow Kyler Murray was 5'11 3/4 at the combine. Well, we all know Kyler Murray's like 5'9 1/2. But somehow he gained 2.5 inches in height. So we all know they add weight, they take away weight, they add a few inches here, there, who cares? But Yeah, I don't think that the Giants can afford to take, unless, like I mentioned last stream or last show, if the Giants took Shedeur Sanders at 3 and then doubled up on Milrow in the 4th round because we saw it before. If they did that, I could understand it. That would make a little bit more sense to me if they did decide to double up. But to Anthony's point, you probably wouldn't use 2 top 100 picks on 2 quarterbacks, but you never know.
Especially if they sign Russ, I think it's even less likely.
Yeah. Because then what do you get? Well, DeVito would be the guy that would be out at that point, but you never know. Really quick, just want to give a big shout out to BetUS TV. You can check them out on YouTube. They have a YouTube channel, so you can check out BetUS TV. And we're still sitting here talking about who the next Giants quarterback is going to be. We haven't heard much about Jameis Winston at all. So I don't know what the odds are of Jameis Winston being a New York Giant, but it does sound like Russell Wilson would be the favorite at this point. And we touched on the odds last week. The Giants are 200-1 to win the Super Bowl. So if you feeling lucky and you think the Giants are going to pull off all miracle, I can't believe it's only 200-1, to be completely honest with you. 500-1. Tommy DeVito's our quarterback, but as I mentioned, those odds will probably change if Russell Wilson became the quarterback. I'm not saying they'd be great. We're not going to be 10-1.
They'd be 198-1.
Probably be like 150-1. That's my guess. They'd probably be 151 or whatever. They're actually, the Giants are also last to win the conference. They're 100-1 to win the conference. So they're behind the Saints, Panthers. It just tells you how the mighty, or not even the mighty, we are just at the bottom of the freaking barrel. I don't know what else to say. But big shout out to BetUS TV. Like I said, they sponsor stream. Check out their channel on YouTube. And maybe when we do this show on Wednesday, Russell Wilson will be in a Giants uniform and we'll have a totally different graphic. We shall find out. This question came from Coda Trout. He says, how do you feel about the 2 big quarterbacks, Ward and Sanders? Would they be an improvement over Daniel Jones? Chris, we'll start with you.
Yes. I mean, they better be. I mean, if you're taking them that early, they absolutely better be. But yeah, I think both of them are better prospects than Daniel Jones was. Daniel Jones had some. You want to talk about a guy that had traits? He had some traits. The guy was mobile. I do think his arm was a bit similar to Shedeur Sanders this year, where I feel like Shedeur Sanders' arm strength is being a little bit undersold. I think similar you could say for Daniel Jones, but Daniel Jones' biggest weakness is arguably Shedeur Strang's biggest strength, in my opinion, the ability to scan the field and get the ball out quick and be accurate when you throw the football. So yes, 100%. Daniel Jones had potential, but he never grew into it. And as a prospect, he's not even close to either one of these 2 guys.
Yeah, that's fact. Anthony, what do you think?
I agree. I think that as prospects, not even, if you're looking at Daniel Jones' NFL career, let's just look at him at Duke. I would take Shedeur Sanders at Colorado and Cam Ward at Miami over Daniel Jones at Duke any day of the week. I think that Daniel Jones has always had certain flaws in his game from college to the NFL level, and the hope was that he could overcome those flaws and develop into a great starting quarterback for the Giants. Those flaws always stuck with him. In 2022, when the Giants made it to the playoffs and won that playoff game, in my opinion, what they did was mask those flaws through a great offensive game plan. Yes, he did play well, and I'll always give him credit for that, and I always have given him credit for that. I've always appreciated the fact that Daniel Jones did win us a playoff game. That was a tremendous moment for this Giants franchise. However, ultimately, we saw them fall flat against the Eagles, and a lot of that I felt like had to do with the fact that Daniel Jones was a limited quarterback. I'm not saying that Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward are unlimited, but when you look at them as prospects, plus the fact that they're a clean slate, they don't have 4 offensive coordinators in their NFL career already holding them back, all that reteaching that caused Daniel Jones to falter, you want to start fresh. And I do think we would see an improvement with Ward or Sanders. Obviously, we'll see an improvement in timing, which is what I explained on Wednesday. I think that those 2nd and 8s turn into 2nd and 2s with Sanders because he gets the ball out on time and quickly. Versus where Daniel Jones would hold on to the ball just an extra second and then throw it. And then with Ward, the ability to throw the ball downfield, push the ball, and make aggressive passes would tremendously improve, because I think over the course of the last 6 years, what we've seen with Daniel Jones was an inability to be aggressive and throw those tight window throws downfield. So Either way, I think those quarterbacks in this draft class would be improvements over Daniel Jones. The question is just improving over Daniel Jones worth it, or should we try to improve and make sure that we get a quarterback that's in the top 5 to 10 of the league? Like, that's ultimately what comes down to, is how much of an improvement do you really desire? And that's going to dictate which quarterback you want, or whether or not you even want a quarterback in this draft class. But if the goal is just to improve at quarterback, I don't think that's much of a challenge.
There's a couple of things here. To Chris's point, yes, Shedeur Sanders definitely much more on time with his throws, much more decisive and confident in his throws, without question. Daniel Jones' big thing was inaccuracy, and it's just because, to Anthony's point, he held on to the ball too long. And in the NFL, man, with no scores like that, he could never anticipate. He never threw receivers open. In the NFL, you have to anticipate and throw them open, throw the ball to a spot. Jones couldn't do it at all. What Ward does, Ward is more improvisational. He can improvise. He can get out of the pocket. He can extend plays. And when he does, he's not extending plays to throw the ball 3 yards past the line of scrimmage into double coverage. Ward is saying, screw this. I am just launching it down the field. And if it gets picked off 60 yards down the field, it's like a punt. And if we hit a big play, we get a pass interference, we get a big play. So both of those guys, like I said, they're completely different in their strengths and weaknesses, I think. I like Ward because I just like that. I like that Riverboat Gambler type of player. I just like the guy that can really give you the big plays. And it certainly would not be adverse to Shedeur Sanders being the New York Giants quarterback. But yes, like Anthony mentioned, I mean, it's an improvement, but anybody should be an improvement over 3 wins. Okay. The Giants still have to build a roster around either one of those quarterbacks, and they can't bring in a new offensive coordinator every single year and make the guy learn all over again, because that's how you do regress as an NFL quarterback. Daniel Jones did do some nice things for the Giants. I always thought Daniel Jones physically had really good tools, without question, and I don't think the Giants did him any favors. I think the Giants screwed him up more than he already. All the Giants did was emphasize his flaws. That's kind of what they did. To Anthony's point, in 2022, they hit his flaws. But most times, because of the way they ran the organization, because of all the coaches, because of all the changes, they couldn't fix the offensive line, because of all this, it accentuated his flaws instead of hiding them. So it was difficult for him to succeed because he had nothing good around him. So whoever the quarterback is, the Giants cannot do that to one of these young quarterbacks. Otherwise, they're going to suffer the same fate. Daniel Jones is maybe not as bad, but I think it'll be good. The other thing I want to say, Daniel Jones was put in a very difficult spot because he followed the greatest quarterback in the history of this franchise. These two guys, one or the other, is not coming in with that hanging over their head. I'm replacing a 2-time Super Bowl MVP quarterback, a Hall of Famer. I have to replace him. I have ties in the Manning family, and I was coached by Cutcliffe and all this other stuff that tied to Manning. Everyone's like, oh, it's Eli Manning. He's the same height. He's the same size. He's got the same personality. None of these guys have to worry about that. So I think that's a big anvil lifted off their chest as well. They don't have to be compared to Eli Manning, where Daniel Jones, fair or not fair, was always going to be compared to Eli Manning because he replaced him. And that was a difficult spot for him to be in. So I don't know, but
and having Malik Neighbors day one is a big factor.
Go ahead, Anthony.
I'm going to interject with some breaking news. According to Jordan Schultz of Fox Sports, the Giants and quarterback Jameis Winston are finalizing a 2-year, $8 million deal, which could be worth up to $60 million with incentives.
Wow. So where does Russ end? Russ ends up with Cleveland, maybe, which would be the best thing for the Giants in terms of the draft. Because if Cleveland gets Russ, they're not drafting a quarterback. If you want to draft the quarterback, right? Am I wrong about that, Anthony?
No. You're not wrong about that. I'm just frustrated because I wanted Russell Wilson, and this seemingly takes us out of the race for Russell Wilson.
But if your team, I want Shedeur Sanders to drop to me at 3, and I want a quarterback of the future. If Russ ends up in Cleveland, which at this point you have to think that's probably the spot. If Rodgers goes to the Steelers, that makes it much more likely now that Shedeur Sanders will be the pick for the Giants at 3.
This is crazy. I literally just put this graphic up here and said we haven't heard anything about Jameis Winston. And now it looks like Jameis Winston is going to be the New York Giants quarterback. So they should draft Cameron Ward because to me that was his NFL comp.
Fair enough. Do you guys think this completely takes them out of the race for these other quarterbacks, though, or could Jameis Winston be a backup?
I think we're drafting a quarterback now. I think it's like set in stone.
You think they're pivoting away from Aaron Rodgers, pivoting away from Russell Wilson, or could they theoretically see Jameis as a backup? Maybe they don't want to draft a quarterback. Well, I know because we're like under the frame of probably they want to draft a quarterback.
I think that Jameis is going to be the starter all year. I think what we've talked about before all this. Bad Dog and me talked about it. We talked about it on this show as well, collectively, before this Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson conversation even became a possibility. We thought Jameis was the perfect 5-game quarterback to bring in for a rookie. I think this clearly signifies that the Giants are confident they're going to be able to get a quarterback with their first pick in this draft. Because there's no way, Anthony, that Joe Schoen's putting his job on the line with Jameis Winston and no rookie quarterback waiting in the wings. So I'm very confident now that we will be drafting a quarterback.
To Anthony's point, though, could they? Because if it's 2 years, you said 2 years. How much was it, Anthony? I'm sorry.
It was 2 years, $8 million, so $4 million per season with incentives that could take it up to 16.
So that's nothing. That's
backup
nothing.
quarterback money. Backup quarterback money.
Paid Drew Lock. That's less than we paid Drew Lock last year, correct? So why is it not possible, Chris, that they sign Jameis as their backup and Russell Wilson as their starter and take Travis Hunter at 3?
Do you put your job on the line if you're Joe Schoen with that quarterback combination?
Maybe he believes Russell Wilson can help them win now. And if you do, if for whatever reason something happens, you do have a competent backup in Jameis Winston. And not to mention, they still could draft a rookie quarterback. There's no saying that they can't do that.
They could.
But maybe they do. Maybe they decide, you know what, we're going to punt. We're not going to take a quarterback at 3. We're taking the best player in the draft because whoever that is going to be, if it's not a quarterback, it's going to be the best player. It's going to be Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter is probably going to go to Cleveland. But you never know. If the Giants got both of those quarterbacks, Cleveland would have to take a quarterback, wouldn't they? And Tennessee could take a quarterback, which means they might both be off the board. There's a lot of things going on there because then you might end up with Abdul Carter. You might end up with Travis Hunter. And then down the road, maybe at 99, you take Jalen Milroe. Who knows?
Maybe I'll be wrong.
Yeah, that's backup quarterback money. That's nothing.
I won't rule anything out. But this is what I thought was going to happen all along before this Rodgers stuff came in. I thought a Jameis Winston and a quarterback at 3 overall is where they were going. So I'm going to stay with that. That's still what I think. I think it's going to be Shedeur Sanders and Jameis Winston is going to be your quarterbacks this year. But it could happen, to Anthony's point. They could go Russell Wilson and Jameis. And if they did that, I can't imagine they take a quarterback at 3 overall at that point. Because at that point, if you're Joe Schoen, you better win some games next year. And I think they take a Travis Hunter at that point.
Yeah, the $4 million is that's what gets me.
That looks like a backup quarterback signing to me. That's what that looks like.
But the way I look at it, guys, is if they draft Shedeur Sanders, Jameis Winston is going to be a backup quarterback for at least half the season.
Good point.
He's not going to start for more than half the year. And Jameis will probably looks at it like, listen, I think I got some ability. I have the opportunity to play with neighbors. I have the opportunity to play in Brian Dable. Maybe he likes him as a play caller. And if I have 5 or 6 really good weeks, maybe I get an opportunity next year to get a lucrative deal somewhere else. So I think it makes sense for Jameis too, but that's where my head's at. I think I'm locked in. I haven't wavered. Shedeur Sanders is going to be a Giant. That's what I truly believe, and this makes me even more confident in that. I think it's going to be Jameis and Shedeur, guys. I really do.
I'm going to say this. That's a great contract.
Yeah.
That's a great contract. 2 years, $8 million for Jameis Winston? That's a really good contract. Because Anthony was just saying how they could get Russell Wilson for a lot less than Aaron Rodgers. And we still have money to do stuff. Well, $8 million, if that is going to be your starter until you make the change in the middle of the year, shit. I mean, gotta give it to Joe Schoen. That's a damn good contract. And I'm fine with Jameis Winston. I have no issues. I just funny because I
said it a month ago.
We hadn't heard anything about this. It's been Rodgers and Wilson and Rodgers and Wilson and Rodgers and Rodgers. And
we did a whole segment on it like a month ago before the whole Aaron Rodgers fiasco that we thought he was the perfect fit.
Yep, we did. We did. It's just crazy how that. It's great. And by the way, shout out to Ojulari, our girl who's in Vegas. She said, "Watch me not be there, and the Giants will have some breaking news."
We didn't really know we were live.
We called it. Where I know where she is. She should be.
What do you think? Do you think they're still looking at Russ here, or you think it's strictly draft now?
I tend to agree with you. I think that. Oh, see, you told you.
I was like, I just saw that news. We're in an Uber. We have dinner in 10 minutes. I'm like, I got to get on the stream.
Got a quarterback.
We're talking about you. We literally just talking about you.
And it's not Aaron Rodgers. I can't even tell you how thrilled I am that it's not him. You guys know.
Yes, we know. That was just funny. I was like, you said
you're in the win.
Yes. How did you know that?
I've been there. I love the win. It's great.
We're going to Sinatra for dinner, but this place is insane. I haven't been here yet. It's so cool.
You have got to go to the buffet at the win. You've got to go to the buffet at the win. It's great.
For what meal? Like breakfast or any meal?
I eat any of them. Lunch, breakfast, they're all great. It's the best. I think it's the best buffet in Vegas. You gotta go. Yeah.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
So what do you think? How you feeling? 2 years, $8 million?
Great. I saw the incentives are up to 16 million. I think it's great. I also saw or heard something that if they don't get Ward or Sanders, they might trade for Joe Milton, which I think a lot of us would be on board with. Obviously, I mean, I don't know if that means that Dart would be off the table, but I like it. I think if we go 3-14, at least the post-game press conferences are going to be entertaining. So at least we have that to look forward to.
Yeah, it will be.
Yeah, that's such a good deal, though. I mean, that's no money. Now we were just talking about. Go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, I want to throw this out there because we were talking about probably what you were going to say. Could this be a backup quarterback signing? Tom Pelissero just tweeted of NFL Network, the team remains open to adding another quarterback through free agency or the draft, and his deal, the one with Winston, doesn't preclude them from making additional quarterback moves. So potentially this could be a backup quarterback signing and not the starting bridge quarterback signing.
That's crazy.
Interesting.
So you're just talking about, I was going to say, Adriana, do you think that, because Anthony and I are mentioning that it's possible they still sign Russell Wilson?
I was just thinking that too, like the fact that Tom was so specific about it could be a quarterback in free agency. I wouldn't be surprised if they signed Russ too, because my husband just said to me what happened to Russ Wilson. So I don't know. Maybe they would go after 2 veterans if they really feel like at 3 they're not going to be able to get Sanders or Ward.
So they go like the Steelers approach when they went Fields and.
You want to go the same.
Exactly. Good point. Yep.
Yeah. Then we could get who we really want in 2026, which I think would be great.
They'd be able to get the best player at number 3, which would either be Carter or Travis Hunter at that point.
Yeah.
Because obviously, Cleveland is going to take one of those 2 teams is going to take a quarterback. So if the Giants do end up with Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, they're definitely not going to take a quarterback.
They're not going quarterback at that point, not at 3.
So they may just get one later in the draft. Maybe they do. Maybe they punt until 2026. But Joe Shane's got to win now. And maybe he feels that if I bring in Russell Wilson and I bring in Jameis Winston, I got a chance to win some games. And then we'll say, hey, we'll reevaluate at the end of the year and see where we are in the draft. That's crazy, though. That's crazy. That's a great call by you, though, Adriana said. Watch me be in Vegas, not going to be there, and they're going to sign a quarterback.
We mentioned you literally like 2 minutes before you popped in.
Yep, we did. I was like, she said she's going to call in. Bam!
I looked at the time and it said 4:45, and I was like, oh, yes, they're still going to be on. This is perfect timing.
That's awesome.
I don't.
So
Yeah,
funny.
enjoy Vegas. So I don't want to keep you. Enjoy Vegas. But we appreciate
enjoy Vegas.
Thank you.
Like I said, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Yes. Well, now we can all celebrate the fact that we don't have to deal with Aaron Rodgers for 2 years. Thank God.
Yeah, no more Aaron Rodgers talk. That's for sure.
Oh my God. When I saw that he was at the Steelers for 6 hours, I'm like, it's over. It's over for us. It's been over for us for 2 weeks now. Joe, make a move. So
he did.
I'm glad.
We got a quarterback. We got somebody.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I do actually think that Jameis Winston is going to bring some excitement to the fan base too. Like, I think people would have maybe eventually gotten on board with Aaron Rodgers if like his introductory press conference isn't stupid. But I think that that people will be excited about Winston because he's not going to be afraid to throw the ball. He's going to be entertaining. He's mobile. Like, I just think there's maybe a little bit of optimism there.
Let me. Do you guys think Jameis? This is where I find a little bit of a hole in the theory, but maybe I'll be dead wrong. Do you think Jameis would have signed here knowing that they were probably going to draft Russ when he could have more than likely got more of a at least partial starting opportunity somewhere else. Because if they sign Russ, he's the clear backup day one.
Well, I think that's the reason for the incentives. You know, the incentives give him the opportunity where if he is the week one starting quarterback, okay, now you're making $8 million per year rather than $4 million per year. But if you're the backup, at least you're getting the $4 million per year. That's where I think the incentives come into play. Yeah, I think this contract that they're signing him to, the $4 million per year, could be $8 million per year, is basically, well, it'll be 4 if you're the backup. It'll be 8. Keep in mind, this is a 2-year deal, not a 1-year deal. So I think that's actually also important to note. This could be a 2-year backup quarterback option rather than a 1-year bridge quarterback option. I think the 2 years is actually significant in this conversation. So I think that this is like a multiple choice contract. He could be one thing, he could be another, depending on where the Giants land with any of these other guys, whether that be Wilson, Rodgers, Sanders, or Ward. We'll wait and see, but now we have a good backup potential starting bridge quarterback on the roster, which I think is important that the Giants at least elevated their floor here.
I like it. I like the move.
It's just crazy how good of a contract that is. So we paid Tyrod Taylor what, $8 million, $9 million, $7 million. We paid Drew Lock $5 million. We're paying Jameis Winston $4 million. Jameis Winston is way better than Drew Lock.
No question. And I like what Anthony said too, the fact that it's 2 years, it just gives the Giants a lot of flexibility. If they can't get Ward or Sanders and, let's say they get Milroe, who everyone thinks is going to be more of a project, it just gives them more time. It gives, they're not going to have to force the quarterback if they don't love it. And then, 2026, Garrett Nussmeier, baby.
That's the thing. I really wonder if they don't really love one of these two quarterbacks, and they really could say, you know what, we're going to take Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter. We're going to go out. We're going to still get Russell Wilson, and Jameis Winston's going to be the backup. And now we have a solid quarterback room one way or the other, because again, Russell Wilson is a little bit older. Not that he's really dealt with many injuries, but you just never know. And if something does happen, you'd have a legitimate backup. Where a rookie, there's a lot of question marks. I mean, both Ward and Sanders are obviously the best prospects in this year's draft class, but they obviously are not last year's draft class. Maybe Joe Shane says, I want to keep my job. I have an opportunity to do it and still get the quarterback that I love. It's not in this draft class, but I'm going to go with these two veterans. We're going to win some games, and we're going to build the roster for the eventual quarterback in 2026. Who knows? But the $8 million contract gives them so much flexibility. I got to give him credit for that one. That's a really damn good deal.
That was a good point by Anthony, that it's a creative contract where it gives Joe Shane the opportunity to say, hey, if we're going rookie, we're going to give you the $8 million. If we're going more the veteran route, you're going to get so it was a creative contract by Shane. I like this move by Shane.
And I'll say this about it. It is possible that Joe Shane or somebody in the Giants building heard the Browns want to take a quarterback. Maybe it is the Titans are taking a QB, the Browns are taking a QB. Maybe this is the Giants feeling like we're not going to be able to land Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. So let's get Jameis in here as a backup or bridge, just in case one of those guys do fall to us. But let's get him in here as a backup. And now we still can go after Rodgers/Wilson and get a starter in that regard. But knowing that there is a possibility picking at 3, they're not picking at 1 or 2. They might miss out on both of the rookie quarterbacks. This, I think, actually is just a backup quarterback signing, but the incentives give him the opportunity to start if need be. So I think this is a really great way to hedge that bet. You're not banking on one of those quarterbacks falling to number 3 anymore. You've now got a backup quarterback in here, but this doesn't preclude you, like Tom Pelissero said, from getting a legitimate starter. If you land one of those quarterbacks at 3, fantastic. That's even better. But if you feel confident that you're not going to get one of those quarterbacks at 3, okay, now Jameis Winston is your backup quarterback, and you go ahead and get one of these veterans.
I wouldn't hurt my feelings if they went in with Russell Wilson as their starter, Winston as their backup, and Abdul Carter as their starting.
I would be upset.
That wouldn't upset me. I wouldn't be upset with that at all. But maybe it is. Maybe Cleveland can't land a quarterback. Maybe they visited with a lot of these.
I think where Russell Wilson lands is going to really, really tell us more than likely what we're doing in the draft. Like if Russ ends up with Cleveland, you say to yourself, okay, Cleveland now they traded for Pickett and they have Russ, so they're telling you they're more than likely not drafting a quarterback. And if the Giants don't have a legitimate veteran with Winston, what does that tell you? So I think where Russ ends up is going to tell us a ton about where the Giants are leaning in the draft.
Yeah, without question. If they go out and sign Russ, no, we're not drafting a quarterback.
But if he signs with Cleveland, I think we are drafting a quarterback. So it's going to be a really big indicator.
Yeah. If we don't sign Russ, I mean, let's do these.
All right, guys, I got to go to dinner.
Yeah.
So happy.
You called it. That was amazing. You're not gonna be here next week. We're off camera. I'm not gonna be here next week. Watch the Giants sign a quarterback.
I did nail that. I will say I did get that right.
You did. All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks.
All right. Let's get.
That was awesome. That
was pretty funny. Jake said I wouldn't discount the Giants trading up the first. They're not going to do it now, Jake.
I don't think they're trading up the first.
They said they weren't going to do that anyway.
All right, let's make our predictions right now. And we're going to find out probably in the next week or two. I'm sticking with my initial prediction, guys. I think Russ is now going to end up with Cleveland because he's going to view them as the starting opportunity next year. And we're going to end up with Shedeur Sanders. That's where I'm leaning. That's where I was leaning to begin with. This makes it more of a lean for me. I think Russ goes to Cleveland. We end up with Shedeur Sanders. And, of course, Rodgers goes to the Steelers. Are you guys feeling the double quarterback dip in free agency, or are you leaning more towards the draft?
I'm leaning more towards your scenario, but I want the double dip in free agency.
You want the double dip at the quarterback?
I'm leaning double dip.
You are leaning double dip. Interesting.
I'm leaning double dip because I don't think the Giants can risk entering 2025 with Jameis Winston as their starting quarterback. And knowing that there is a chance that the Browns do draft a quarterback at 2 and they're shit out of luck, they can't land Ward or Sanders, Jameis would be the backup. Like, you don't want Jameis Winston starting 17 games for you, man. Like, that's not a good scenario and outcome. And Joe Schoen, Brian Daboll trying to keep their jobs. I can't imagine they're going to be willing to invest their job security into 17 games of Jameis Winston. So I think Jameis Winston is a backup quarterback. Yes, they hope that they can land. You know what? Actually, now that I'm thinking about this could mean that Rodgers is planning on waiting until the draft to make his signing. That could be what that is, because with Winston coming in here as a potential backup / starter, Rodgers could end up being the starter if the Giants miss out on a quarterback at 1/2. Now they say to Rodgers, hey, you are starting all 17 games. Beforehand, we couldn't promise you that because we might have drafted a quarterback at 3. But now that we didn't get a quarterback at 3, now we'll sign you to be our starting quarterback. Then they sign Rodgers after the draft. But if they ended up signing Rodgers now, or maybe this is why Rodgers was waiting, I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Because that's kind of like a new thought that just came to my mind.
I'm glad Adriana's not here to hear that, because she'd want to bring your neck through the screen. But yeah, I mean, it's a good point. That's very possible that it happens. And to your point, what if you do? What if you don't take Russell Wilson? What if you don't double dip in free agency and the Giants do miss out on a quarterback? Because then what if Aaron Rodgers did sign with Pittsburgh? What if Russ signed with Cleveland, or didn't sign with Cleveland? But what if the Giants missed out on the damn quarterback? What if Cleveland does sign a quarterback? Or
I think if you're the Giants at this point, guy, if I'm Shane, this was a really good move by Shane, because it still leaves all of his options open.
Yeah.
Winston is a perfect guy to mentor a young quarterback. He's also a guy that you could just have as a good backup that maybe could supplant a guy like Russell Wilson if you sign him. So you don't really give away anything yet in terms of what you want to do in the draft. But if I'm the Giants, guys, this is just me. I'm not rushing to take Russell Wilson. I'm not rushing to take Aaron Rodgers at this point. I let it play out. I say, okay, if Cleveland signs Russell Wilson, I'm going to get to draft my quarterback. If Cleveland stands pat, then I'll take Russ and I'll double dip at the quarterback position. That's where I would be if I was Joe Schoen. And I like that by him doing this, it leaves all of his options open, and he gave himself a little bit of security at the quarterback position. It's a good move by Shane. And for nothing, like $4 million for a quarterback, even a backup quarterback. That's wild. That's nothing.
It's nothing. And like I said, he's way better than Drew Lock.
Yeah.
He's the best backup quarterback. Well, Tyrod Taylor is pretty good for us too, but that's a great move by Joe Schoen. And it leaves all options still on the table. And that's a big thing. They're not desperate to draft a quarterback now. They're not desperate to sign another quarterback now. They can kind of play it by ear. They have some options now, because they have a guy that can play at the NFL level. Yes, to Anthony's point, I don't think you want to bank on him being a starter for 17 games, but at least you have a guy that can play at this level, can win at this level, and is competent at this level. So that's it. For $8 million, 2 years. It's a great move by Joe Shane. Giants real estate. He says offense been in it for years. Draft Hunter to play wide receiver, but neighbors can't double neighbors. Eagles have Brown and Smith. Bengals have Chase and Higgins. Set the quarterback up for success. I'll be pushing this agenda going forward. I mean, I agree. Both of those teams do have great wide receiver combos. But they also have, Burrow is one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and Philadelphia is just great everywhere. So,
and you don't know if Travis Hunter is going to be a full-time receiver either. Like, it's not, we don't know how they're going to utilize. I know that people look at the wide receiving core and they say, well, he could be but most people at least feel that he's better as a corner. So it's kind of apples and oranges.
Yeah.
I love him, and I'd be happy if we drafted him. Though. I'm not against it.
Matthew, thank you for the super chat. Just got here. I love this. A true leader. Well, I think we're all pretty much in agreement. We love the move.
Yeah, and I just want to answer, and yeah, it's a good move, Matthew. I like the move. I want to answer Joe Blacko. He said, "How are the Giants still not desperate for a quarterback? You're betting your mortgage on Jameis Winston." Giants are still 100% desperate for a quarterback, but I think by doing this, they're not desperate to make a move one way or the other yet because their options are all open. If Cleveland jumps at Russell Wilson, then they know they're more than likely getting a quarterback at 3 in the draft. Because the Jets aren't going to trade up. They just spent $20 million a year on Fields. The Raiders aren't going to trade up. They just traded for, what's his name? Why am I forgetting? Who did the Raiders add at quarterback?
Geno Smith.
Yeah, Geno Smith. They just traded for Geno Smith. So if they could sit back and say, hey, Cleveland, you sign Russ? Okay. We know we're going to get Shedeur or Cam Ward now at this point because you're not more than likely not drafting a quarterback. Or if Cleveland elects not to do that, you bring in Russ and you kind of do what the Steelers did last year with Fields and Russell Wilson. You patch it together for a year. So I just think it gave them the option to go either way. They haven't tilted their hand yet, and they improved their quarterback room. So I think it's a good move. He's a perfect mentor for a young quarterback if you want to go that route, and he's a really good backup if you want to go with a veteran like a Russell Wilson. So, and they didn't pay much to get him. It's a good move. They're still desperate for another quarterback.
Yeah, they need another quarterback, but I don't think they're desperate for it. I think that they need one. But when you have options, you're not desperate. When you are sitting there and you are down to your last option, you're going to be desperate. And you're going to overpay and you're going to make moves like Dave Gettleman was totally desperate. It was total desperation. That's why I got to give Joe Shane so much credit here because he's approached this free agency season not as desperate. He's made great moves, in my opinion, in this free agency, what the hell am I trying to say? Term right now, whatever. During free agency, he's done a great job with the free agents, in my opinion. I think he's done a really good job addressing needs of this team and doing it with good contracts. So we'll see. I don't think he's done. There's something else is going to happen. Be interesting. Yeah. And Anthony, that was a great point by Anthony about Aaron Rodgers. If he waits and the Giants don't get a quarterback, then they could say, all right, come on in. Because you can still afford him. You can still afford him.
Rodgers may be waiting to see if the Giants draft a quarterback. He may be like, if they don't draft one, now I'm intrigued. Yeah.
That's what Anthony was saying. If they don't, Aaron Rodgers can go. Or Giants say, okay, come on in. You're our guy now. So it's gonna be good. Jason Deggy says, I really like Joe Shane's process. And how he constructs these contracts. I hope the wins come because I think he can be a decent GM. I feel like they have to come eventually.
I think Joe Shane from a technical standpoint does all the right things in terms of the structuring of the contracts, in terms of extending players before early on, like he did with Andrew Thomas and Dexter Lawrence. Like I think those are smart things that he does from a technicality standpoint. He's a good GM. He doesn't reach on, he believes in positional value, but he needs to improve in terms of his draft evaluation and stuff. We'll see. We'll see if he gets better. But yeah, Jason, I agree. And even Anthony has given Joe Shane credit for that. He's not a big Joe Shane fan. He said it last week. He likes the way that he constructs the contract. So yeah, we agree with you, Jason.
Yep, he's done a good job. I don't think there's any question.
I'll give him major credit for this contract signing of Jameis Winston.
Yeah,
you just said it right there. I'm maybe Joe Shane's biggest critic sometimes, but this is a great deal. I love this contract.
It is a fantastic deal because it is backup quarterback money. Like I said, we paid Drew Lock more per year, even though it was 1 year, than they're paying Jameis Winston. That's pretty good. And it does leave all options on the table. B-Rock, thank you. The New York Giants don't like CW or Cam Wardle or Sanders, or Joe Shane doesn't want to give up draft capital to move up to pick one. I think that was dead in the water last time. I think the Giants said they weren't doing that because he won't get 1 of 3. But again, that does give the Giants more options. That
maybe I'll be dead wrong, and I'm not against what you guys are saying. The more I'm thinking about it, what Anthony said, going Russ and Winston and getting an Abdul Carter, I can't see it. I don't see how Joe Shane could save his job with a 37-year-old Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston and no quarterback to sell the future on if this team wins 6 games, which I can't imagine they'd win more against this schedule next year. I am very confident at this point, and maybe I'll be dead wrong. I'm a fool sometimes. I'll be the first to say it. I am very confident after this signing that we're drafting a quarterback at 3 overall. Very confident.
Joe Shane feels like if they did take a rookie quarterback and started Jameis Winston, that they might only win 3 games and 4 games, and he loses his job anyway. You think that he would go into the year going, I feel more confident in established veterans. Russ is going to the Hall of Fame. So I'm gonna bring in an established Hall of Fame quarterback, great veteran leadership. I'm gonna have great veteran leadership in this quarterback room. I have a very competent backup quarterback that can play if something happens. And he just feels more confident that I'm going to go in with 2 quarterbacks that I know can play at this level. There's no questions. We know what Jameis Winston has. We know what Russell Wilson has. We know what they are. There's no question. You don't know what Shedeur Sanders is going to be at the NFL level. Don't know what Cam Ward's going to be. So let me go with guys that I know what they bring and give me the best player at number 3, whether that's Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. I want one of those 2 guys with my 3rd pick because that's what it's going to be there. Because one of those 2 teams in front of me is taking a quarterback, or someone's trading up and taking a quarterback. But one of those 2 guys is going to be there for me at 3. So if both of those guys are gone, well, then the Giants can look at trading back at that point. Honestly,
I don't think trade back. As we've said before, though, Bad Dog, I don't think we're trading back.
Well, I depend. Yeah, because of the quarterback thing. But now I don't know.
Yeah.
But this do a little. He threw a slider.
Somebody said, "Is this title clickbait?" I don't even know what the title is, Caps. Why is it clickbait? What's the title?
They changed it.
Breaking Giants signed Jameis Winston. Not clickbait. It's true.
That's not clickbait. They just signed Jameis Winston.
How is that Jameis Winston?
Do people not realize what the definition of clickbait is?
They don't. No.
The definition of clickbait is saying overemphasizing something that isn't real. They signed Jameis Winston. That's not clickbait.
Right. Clickbait would be Giants sign Aaron Rodgers. Clickbait is
Giants sign elite quarterback.
That's what they should have made the title. Giants sign elite QB.
That's clickbait.
That's clickbait. Not telling the truth.
Yeah.
Right. Gabe Danger says, "Do we talk about a little Jordan signing? I thought it might have been a Wilson move until this news."
It's a fine signing. It's a 1-year deal for a backup wide receiver. That's really all I think it is. Actually, I don't think it has anything to do with Russell Wilson.
Well, of course.
He's got upside. I'll say he does have upside, but I think he's just a depth piece. I don't
the interesting part of that signing for me, and we should have this conversation, but it's a minor signing. He may not even make the team. But what's interesting about that signing, and Duggan brought it up, he doesn't play special teams at all, right? So I think it's not a lock that Jalen Hyatt makes this team next year because he's a competent wide receiver, this guy. They could easily take a receiver in the first 3 rounds this year. Jalen Hyatt does not contribute to special teams. There's competition there. I'm predicting he'll make the team, but it's now not a lock for me after this signing. That was my takeaway from that signing.
Yeah. We'll see. It's very interesting. I just if the Giants would have gave Jameis Winston, say 2 years, $20 million or $28 million, then he's a starting quarterback. But the contract is what's kind of thrown me for a loop. That it's only $4 million per season, with the opportunity to be $8 million a season, but still $8 million per year is backup quarterback money. So they signed him as a backup quarterback, and so it's intriguing that Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers are still out there, and I don't think that possibility is dead, that one of them is the starter and Jameis Winston is the backup. It's not dead. Is it likely?
I agree it's not dead. I'm not predicting it, but it's not dead. I agree with that.
Yeah, I'm not predicting it either. I just still think the Giants, all those options we were talking about before we started this when we started the stream tonight, I believe that those options are still on the table.
Yeah,
it's also funny that I said that when I brought that graphic up that we haven't heard anything about Jameis Winston, and a minute later, Anthony's like, we got breaking news, Giants Jameis Winston. That's crazy. Jason, thank you so much. Says, I'm really intrigued with Jalen Milroe. Wonder what Dabbs and Kafka could do with him after sitting a year. He had the highest upside of any quarterback in the draft, in my opinion. Maybe they go that route too. It's possible.
I think, and you guys know I slightly prefer Shador, which is not a popular thing to say amongst Giant fans. Like 95% of Giants fans are Team Cam Ward. I think Cam Ward is higher. On Twitter, it feels that way at least.
Maybe.
Maybe I'm just following the wrong people. But not that you're wrong to feel that way, but like I feel like nobody is Team Shador at this point for the Giants. But I think Cam Ward is the highest ceiling in this draft. I actually think Shador is the highest floor, but I think Cam Ward is the highest ceiling of any quarterback in this draft. Jalen Milroe could run fast, but Cam Ward's, I think, has a much bigger ceiling than Milroe. He's got a big arm. He's a much more developed quarterback. So I actually disagree with that. I think Jalen Milroe is the best athlete of any quarterback in this class, but I think Cam Ward has the highest ceiling.
Yeah, Jalen Milroe would be a guy that would be a day 3 guy. I don't think there's any question about that.
But I he's an argument for why you would say Jalen Milroe because of his athletic ability. He does have a pretty strong arm. I get it, but I actually think Cam Ward is the highest ceiling.
Yeah, without question. Cam Ward guy, always. Kevin, thank you, brother. Winston means we're either trading up or taking Sanders at 3. I don't know why we would trade up if they just took Winston. The trading up thing's dead. I don't think the Giants are doing that. Play him out the season if he looks the part, great. If not, a top pick next year, the better quarterback class. Throw darts at the QB till it's fixed.
All right. So I like to throw darts at a QB thing because I feel like you're quoting me, at least paraphrasing me. So I appreciate that, Kevin. But what I'll say about this, Chris said that he feels more confident than ever that they were taking Shador Sanders at 3. I feel the exact opposite. I feel like this signing more than anything indicates that the Giants feel like they're not getting a quarterback at number 3. So they're signing a backup quarterback now with the intention of hopefully landing Sanders at 3, but more likely signing a legitimate starting veteran quarterback in free agency. That's how I feel, because I think this is just part 1. And I think part 2 is signing Russ or Rodgers. So I think this is a backup quarterback signing. I think they do sign a veteran quarterback who's a starter in the next couple of weeks. We'll see who it is, Rodgers or Wilson. And then eventually, yes, when we get to the draft, quarterback will be on the table. But this tells me that the Giants feel like quarterback won't be on the table at number 3, and they're going to take the best player available.
And I feel the exact opposite, and that's what makes this show great. I think the Giants did this too because they feel Cleveland is going to sign Russell Wilson, and the quarterback's going to fall right in their lap because they don't end up with Russell Wilson. That's what my honest opinion is, and we'll find out in a couple of weeks what happens. But I think our quarterback room next year is going to be Shador, Winston, and Tommy DeVito, and Anthony thinks it's going to be Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers with Jameis Winston and the Italian Stallion. So
I'll tell you, Russell Wilson. I just combined them there. Jameis Winston and Russell Winston. We got a new quarterback. He said the Giants are the more viable option. It's just because now, Chris, to your point, you talk about Russell Wilson saying, do I want to go to the Giants knowing that they could draft a rookie quarterback and he might take my spot? Well, now Russell Wilson knows they have a backup in Jameis Winston. He's not going to take my job. They just signed a backup. So if I come into New York, I'm going to be the starter. And there's no question because they're not going to be pressured to play Jameis Winston, where if, it was Shador Sanders, so who knows?
If they go that route, then the draft is as clear as day for us. If they sign Russell, and we're going to know before the draft, then we go, okay, well, we're not drafting the quarterback guys. We're getting Abdul Carter. We're getting Travis Hunter.
Yeah. It's very interesting. Joe Shane gave us a lot to think about. By the way, huge shout out, 800 people in here. We appreciate you being here. If you just found this channel, please make sure you subscribe. We normally have a 4th here, Adriana, NY Giants fangirl on Twitter. She is normally part of this. She's in Vegas. She popped in for a little bit when this news broke. We run this show Wednesdays and Fridays from 7 to 8 o'clock. It's all about Giants news. We haven't had a lot to talk about, just a lot of speculation. Now we do because Russell Wilson is a Russell Wilson. This is Freudian slip, Anthony. I keep saying Russell Wilson. He's going to be a Giant. I swear to God. Jameis Winston is a New York Giant. So it's going to be good. It's going to be interesting in the next couple of weeks. JD, what up, brother? He says the incentives gap is significant enough to where it tells me rookie quarterback. Russ is 36. He has a couple years. Winston has zero shot to hit those incentives with Russ here for 2 years versus a rookie quarterback.
Great point by JD. Great point by JD. That's a great point. Like, why?
But what if Russ got hurt at 36?
It's true. I just thinking from the mind of Joe Shane, I can't see a way he keeps his job if they sign Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston and they win 6 games. And if I'm being honest with you, with this schedule, I can't see how they win more than 6 games with those two as the quarterback. So for me, if Joe Shane goes that route, he's signing his death warrant because he's got no hope. He's got no hope to sell going forward into the future. He's got a 37-year-old Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. So that's why I'm more confident that we're going to draft the quarterback.
But if they have a bad year with a tough schedule,
but at least at that point you could say, we played Shore the last 4 weeks. He looked good. We have something to build on.
What if he looks bad?
Then you're out of a job anyway.
Right.
But at least you got a chance if you draft the quarterback.
Well, you also would have a chance if you got a bad, and if you go to John Mayer and go, listen, I'm not in love with either one of these quarterbacks. I don't want to spend the third pick. I really want to do it this way. Okay. I want to get I want to get a legitimate backup. Let's get Jameis Winston here. And I want a legitimate starter. I know Russell Wilson can play this level. I know he's older, but I know he can play. He led the Steelers to the playoffs last year. We take the best player at 3, which is going to be Hunter or Carter, whoever's there. And I like the quarterbacks next year's draft class better. So you're not sitting there trying to win 3 games, but you deal with it next year. You know, you have a lot of draft capital this year too. So there's just a lot that can happen right now. I don't know. Going into it before this signing, before the contract, without question, I say the Giants are still drafting a quarterback, but $8 million, they can do whatever the hell they want still. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's what makes this fun. It can still go anyway. And now I am super excited to see what happens with Russell Wilson, because that to me is going to tell us a ton about the draft.
Yeah.
I'm super excited to see him sign with the Giants.
We'll see.
Zeke, thank you. What up, fellas? This tells me Shador is a Giant. Let's go.
Zeke agrees with me.
But
Good to see you.
What I don't understand is, what's the difference if it's Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson? Wouldn't they just be the guy that was holding the spot for the rookie quarterback?
Well,
I think contract.
That's what I mean.
And I think at least with Russell Wilson, you could kind of convince yourself that they could bypass the rookie quarterback in this year's draft. If they don't sign a Russell Wilson or a Aaron Rodgers at this point, I talked about how does he save his job?
If they don't sign those, they're definitely taking a quarterback.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll find out. But I think it's more, the way I look at it, at least, is it's more likely that they're drafting a quarterback by signing Jameis Winston than if they would have signed Wilson first. They still could sign Wilson. I won't rule that out.
Yeah. They can do a lot of things. It's just this contract is mind-boggling. Yeah. JD, thank you again. He says we're going to double dip on Tana's take. They signed Wilson with Winston. They're telling Mary in his face the plan failed, which means playoffs mandate. But what was the plan? Was the plan to draft 3rd overall this year? And I don't know what their plan was supposed to be. Did they tell it?
I could be wrong, but I think what JD may mean is the plan going into this offseason when he decided to keep them.
Yeah, but what that's I mean was the plan.
Obviously, it appears the initial plan was to trade for Matthew Stafford. That was the initial plan.
So wouldn't that? But they wanted Matthew Stafford. So why, if they took Matthew Stafford, why would they take a rookie quarterback? How is that going to work? Because Matthew Stafford would have been here for a while.
Do you think Russell Wilson is on near the level of a Matthew Stafford at this point?
No, but they're like the same age, aren't they?
Yeah, but
I don't think Rodgers is on the level of. I don't even think he's close. I think Stafford is way ahead of both of those guys.
That's what personally. I mean.
Yeah.
Right. So what? But that's my point. Why would they want to pay Stafford all that money if they really loved a quarterback in this year's draft?
My thought process is I think there was multiple plans. I think they're like similar to the guard situation in free agency. We talked about how the Giants had one or two guards they were willing to spend a lot of money on. When they didn't have the opportunity to get those guards, they changed their plan. They focused on the secondary. I could see a scenario where it's the same thing here. They identified Matthew Stafford as a guy that could be the starting quarterback for 3 years and could still be a top 7, 8, 9 quarterback in the league. And if they weren't able to obtain him, they shift more towards the long vision with drafting a rookie quarterback.
That's what three years. You're not going to draft a guy at 3 and make him sit for 3 years. So this is why I'm like, are they really, really sold on one of those guys at 3?
We'll find out.
It's just there's a lot to take in here. It's crazy. I listen. Whatever they do, I'll be on board with it. I'm fine with Shedeur Sanders at 3. I'm fine with Cameron Ward at 3. I'm fine if they get Russell Wilson and decide they want Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter at 3. So the Jameis Winston thing, I just think that's a really good move by Joe Schoen, regardless of
it tells us nothing.
Right. It doesn't tell us nothing. What it tells us is we have a very competent backup quarterback.
Oh, I love him as a backup. Yeah.
That's it. So it's a good move. From the Red, thank you. He says, does signing Winston point to where we're going to do in the draft? Or do you have to wait and see what Rodgers or Wilson's going to do?
Wait and see, I think.
It is a wait and see at this point.
Yeah, I think it's the second part formula. Like, we could all formulate our opinion off this. It's just funny that me and Anthony had polar opposite opinions on what just transpired. But at the end of the day, I think Anthony would agree with me. If they don't end up with Russell Wilson, or Aaron Rodgers, it clearly points towards drafting a quarterback.
Absolutely.
So until the second part of that question takes place, formula, we see where Russell Wilson goes and Aaron Rodgers goes, it doesn't tell us much.
We didn't get the starting quarterback answer. That we did not get tonight, but we got the backup quarterback answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll also highlight, Chris and I disagree a lot, and I like that. It makes this show good.
Yeah.
I think we respectfully disagree, and I think we have a logical reason why we have our opinions. I think that makes it entertaining.
Of course,
it's super entertaining. It's fun. I like
it. Kevin, thank you. Tommy Cutler's dying inside, as you say. We have a legit backup. Well, Tommy's always been the third quarterback. He's never really been our backup QB. We're Italian. We all love Tommy Cutlets. Tommy Cutlets. We all love Tommy, but let's be honest. That's not Joe Schoen can't go into the year going, Tommy DeVito's my backup. Okay, to Shedeur Sanders. Like you can't have that quarterback going into 2025. So it's no knock on Tommy DeVito, but he's always been QB3 here. He was never the backup. Only way Joe saves his job is with a rookie quarterback who shows potential.
I agree, and that's why I don't think they're getting Russell Wilson at this point. But we'll find out.
I don't know.
I think Jameis Winston.
Listen, he's having discussions with John Mara about this. You know, he's not just doing this on his own. So you never know. Maybe he sold John Mara a bill of goods. Maybe. We don't know.
Maybe
we'll find out here in the coming weeks.
Maybe.
Right? The draft is about 5 weeks away. So
it's crazy. Yeah, less than 5 weeks away. Crazy.
We're
going overtime tonight, by the way. It's big news.
We've been overtime. Well, we had breaking news, so I figured we could let it go a little bit longer. By the way, if you guys haven't done so, make sure you subscribe and all that good stuff. I didn't see where we were for subscribers. I always like to check it out. I'm not doing it right now. We are over 3,100. This show is growing really, really fast. And
how many people we got in here with this clickbait title, Bad Dog?
Almost 850. The clickbait thing is funny.
What is this clickbait? The title says the Giants signed a player.
I didn't know. Well, I know that we're up to 3,192. So 8 more people can subscribe. We're at 3,200. Borna said in the text, one of the production team members said just change the title to Jameis. That's why everybody came in. And then somebody says that clickbait. No, not clickbait. We don't even make the titles. This, like I said, we're here, but this show is produced by the show is produced by other people. So, but no, it's not clickbait. The Giants have signed Jameis Winston to a 2-year, $8 million deal with incentives that could make it up to $16 million. Not clickbait. We don't do clickbait here. We're not one of those channels that does Giants sign star and the guy's last name is Star. Okay, and that's kind of clickbait. Giants sign wide receiver, and it's nobody you've ever heard of. We don't do that stuff. Maybe I should. The Eagle fans do it all the freaking time. Their whole thing is clickbait. Every damn Eagles content creator, clickbait.
Shocker.
Clickbait. Wow, huge. Breaking the internet. Kevin, thank you. This is great. We're all over the place. Kevin agrees with me and Anthony. Call me crazy, but this lines up with signing Rodgers and taking BPA at 3.
Well, you know what? I will give Bad Dog credit because I didn't even think of that. If the Giants want to go the route that Anthony suggested, and this is why this is so fun to speculate about, it makes a guy like Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson feel a lot more secure coming here, knowing that they're probably not going to draft a rookie quarterback now that you have Jameis Winston as the backup. So it's a good point by Bad Dog.
We're going to find out. We're going to find out. What are we going to know? Big Moo, the legendary Big Moo. He says, Hyatt must be thrilled to death. He's got someone who isn't scared to air it out, could save his career. This is actually a pretty good point. I always liked Jalen Hyatt. I thought it was a great draft pick. They traded up to get him. He's a Blitnikoff winner. They don't just give those awards away. Jalen Hyatt, however, pretty much is a one-trick pony. He's just a speedster. He's a burner. He is your big play home run hitter guy. He's not a great route runner, never has been. Didn't have a quarterback that would throw the ball down the damn field to him. So how could you accentuate his strength when you had a quarterback that held onto the ball and threw 4-yard outs? Is it possible? Because Jameis Winston has no problem throwing the ball down the damn field. If it gets picked, it gets picked. He don't care. He will sling it around.
Yeah.
Does this give Jalen Hyatt an opportunity to show out in training camp and make this roster and be a part of it going forward?
I mean, I would lean he's making the roster. I just threw that out there.
You know what I mean? Being an impactful player.
I'm going no. I'm being dead honest with you. I'm going no. And maybe I'll be dead wrong. Maybe there'll be an injury and he'll get more of an expanded role. But I think the fact that they extended Darius Slayton to the deal in which they did, now it wasn't earth-shattering, but $12 million a year is a decent, good salary in the NFL. The fact that they extended him, I think Jalen Hyatt's on the way out, man. I don't think the Giants have a lot of confidence in Hyatt at this point. They've seen him play at practice. He hasn't been able to get on the field. But if there was ever an opportunity where he could flourish, it would be having a quarterback that could throw the ball deep down the field, because we all know that's the one thing that we all were at least hopeful that above all else that Jalen Hyatt would be able to bring to this football team after seeing him play at Tennessee. But no, I don't expect Jalen Hyatt to have a big role at all next year. And that could change with injuries, of course. But assuming we're going to draft a rookie wide receiver relatively early, they signed Slayton. You still have Wandell on the squad. Of course, Malik Neighbors. Theo Johnson, I expect to get an expanded role. I just don't see a big role for him, Bad Dog. I really don't.
Yeah, I don't think he'll have a big role, but I think he has more of an opportunity with those guys that will throw the ball down the field. I think he has an opportunity. I know that he had a couple of opportunities and he dropped passes. That certainly wasn't a good look for him. But still a lot of questions. Still a lot of questions. One question was answered, and it just made more questions. JD, thank you. Mara's words, the number one priority of the offseason is to find a quarterback in the future, whether it's free agency or draft. That'll be up to them.
Was that an exact quote? I remember he talked about the quarterback. Did he say future quarterback of the future? I don't remember the quote.
But you never know. Maybe they do.
Did.
Maybe
He did say quarterback of the future. I don't know.
If he did, Russell Wilson is not a quarterback of the future, and neither is Jameis.
But maybe they trade for one. Maybe they get one later in the draft. Who knows? Yeah. How far ahead is the future? What is the future? Is the future 3 years? Is the future 9 years? I mean, they probably thought they were getting Daniel Jones quarterback of the future when they drafted him. And
sometimes the future is bleak. But
correct. It's been bleak for a long time for us. But who the hell knows?
JD, you know me. You know me. We talk every day on Twitter in the private chats, JD. You know where I am. I'm with you on this. I think it's Shedeur, and I think it's Jameis Winston. That was my prediction before all this Rodgers stuff came about. I thought he would be the veteran, and then once it came about, I'm like, okay, maybe they'll end up with Rodgers or Wilson. But I always said Winston and Shador. I'm not swaying on that. That's what I still think.
I always thought Winston.
But I do like your guys' points. I think you guys make good points for why it could mean the complete opposite.
So, Chris, I was also on board with Winston. I said Winston will probably be a Giant. He makes the most sense. But I didn't think he'd only be getting $8 million for 2 years. This is why it raises more questions than gives us answers. Because if they gave him $16 million, you're like, well, he's the starter. It makes sense.
Yeah,
per season, not for 2 years. He literally is getting $8 million for 2 years. That's less than we paid Drew Lock. I can't overstate that enough. He is getting paid as a backup. So whether it's just crazy. I don't know what to say. It's been a hell of a stream. I know that. Any closing thoughts before we get out? We did go overtime tonight because obviously breaking news. We hung out with you guys a little bit longer because this was a big deal. We do have an actual quarterback in a quarterback room now.
Isaac says terrible boycott. What? Why are we going to boycott? We're going to boycott. There's a lot of reasons to boycott the Giants. You should have boycotted the Giants when they did the free medium Pepsi. You should have boycotted the Giants when they did the quarterback sneak on 3rd and 9 at their own 4-yard line or whatever it was. You should have boycotted the Giants with the Joe Judge press conference and when DeAndre, whatever. There's so many reasons to boycott the Giants. We're going to boycott the Giants because they signed Jameis Winston to a $4 million a year contract? What are we talking about? It's a good deal. It's a good deal. What are you complaining about?
Great deal. I like it, man. I think it's a great contract.
That's a great point. Of all the things you would boycott the Giants over, paying a legitimate quarterback less than backup quarterback money. Tyrod Taylor got $10 million a year from the Jets. We gave Drew Lock $5 million. We're paying Jameis Winston $4 million, and you're going to boycott because of that? Okay. Well, it is what it is. It is what it is, man. You can boycott it. We say it all the time. Nobody's really boycotting. I've been saying this for the last 3 years. I'm done with
if we didn't boycott them yet, we're never going to boycott them.
I've been saying for 3 years, I'm done with this team. I can't do this shit no more. I can't talk about them. I have 3 shows where I talk about the damn Giants. In my own channel on top of it. That's all I do. Chris, thank you. Says the Giants pre- and post-game interviews just got a whole lot more entertaining with Jameis Winston in town. Yeah. Spice it up a little bit.
Yeah, you're gonna have crabs at the podium, right? He loves his crabs or whatever.
But we're gonna have
I'm excited, man. I'm excited now.
I just like this. I just like Liam's. Fuck it, leak down there somewhere. I just like that. Just just go get it, leak. I like it. That was funny. It made me laugh. All right. Guys and girls, thank you so much for watching again. This was a great stream. If you haven't done so, make sure you subscribe. Obviously, there's going to be more answers coming in the future as we get nearer and nearer the draft. The Giants do add Jameis Winston. We're all in agreement. We don't know what the future holds. We're kind of in disagreement about that, what they may do, but we're definitely in agreement. I think we all love the contract. I think we all think it's a great move by Joe Shane, and we look forward to him making good moves going forward as well. So,
no boycott.
We're not boycotting. You guys can boycott. The Giants can boycott this show. We're going to be here on Wednesday. Adriana will be back with us on Wednesday, and maybe we'll have more Giants news. So until then, for Anthony.
Get Big Move Super Chat. We missed it last week.
What's that?
Big Move just hit you with a Super Chat.
Big Move, thank you. Says, I guess we'll see if Daves is a quarterback whisperer. Well, Jameis Winston is Jameis Winston. I don't think Daves can do much with him, but we're gonna see what Daves does. Daves is probably happy that he's got a guy that can throw the ball more than 6 yards. I'm sure he's happy about that. So we'll do it again for Anthony Entertainer. It's the man D Dizzle. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, everybody. We'll see you Wednesday night. We out. Peace.